Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving into something that's super important, but can often feel like a total mystery: the connection between your kidneys, your lab results, and the medications you take. We're going to crack the code on those numbers from your blood test, so you can really understand what they're telling you about your health.
So, have you ever wondered about this? Your doctor hands you a new prescription, and almost the first thing they say is, "We need to get some blood work." It feels like just another step, right? But it's actually the very beginning of some really important medical detective work, all designed to keep you safe.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about why your kidneys are kind of the star witnesses in this whole situation. Then, we'll decode the #1 clue hiding in your lab results. After that, we'll check out the special tools doctors use to crack the case, see how that can lead to a diagnosis, and finally, put together a kidney save action plan. Sound good? Let's jump in.
Okay, first things first, let's give a round of applause for our kidneys. Seriously. Think of these guys as your body's super advanced 24/7 filtration plant. Pretty much everything that goes into your body, especially medications, has to pass through them to be processed and cleared out.
So, why all the fuss about knowing how well they're working? Well, it all boils down to your safety. Doctors have to know how well those filters are running. It helps them prevent a medication from building up to dangerous levels, helps them pick the absolute perfect dose just for you, and helps them figure out if a bad reaction might be tied to your kidneys.
And now the detective work begins. When a doctor wants to check on your kidney function, the very first clue they look for comes from a really common blood test. They're looking for a little something called serum creatinine.
So what in the world is creatinine? Honestly, it's just waste. Here's a simple way to think about it. Your muscles are like an engine. As they work and burn fuel to give you energy, they create exhaust. Creatinine is basically that exhaust set. It's totally normal to have it, and it's the kidney's job to scrub it out of your blood. So the story is pretty simple. Your muscles do their thing, they make creatinine, and your kidneys clean it up and send it out. When your kidneys are in great shape, the level of that soot in your blood stays nice and low. But if they start to struggle, that level starts to creep up. It's a pretty direct signal. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. That number is not one size fits all. A professional athlete is going to have a way higher creatinine level than an elderly person, just because they have more muscle. Even things like certain drugs or being pregnant can change the reading. And that's exactly why doctors can't just look at this one number and call it a day. And this, right here, is the biggest weakness of relying only on creatinine. It's just not very sensitive. You see, the tiny filters in your kidneys are called nephrons. You could lose almost half of your kidney function, before that creatinine number on your lab report even starts to look a little high. That's a huge blind spot, and it means we need better tools in our detective kit. Which brings us to the really cool part, the detective's special tools. I'm talking about mathematical formulas. These equations are designed to take that raw creatinine number and mix it with a few other clues to give us a much more accurate picture of what's really going on with the kidneys. For many years, the classic go-to tool has been something called the Cockcroft-Gault equation. What it does is give us a really solid estimate of something called creatinine clearance. In plain English, that just means how many milliliters of blood can your kidneys clean of creatinine every minute. So what goes into this magic formula? It's actually a pretty simple recipe. It takes that creatinine number from your blood test, and then it adjusts it based on your age, your sex, and, this is really important, your ideal body weight. All that extra context is what makes the final number so much more useful.
Now, Cockcroft-Gault isn't the only game in town. There's a newer formula called the MDRD equation. The biggest difference? MDRD doesn't need your weight, which means labs can calculate it automatically. It also tends to be more accurate when kidney function is already pretty low. But here's the key thing you need to remember. For figuring out medication doses, Cockcroft-Gault is still the gold standard.
Okay, so these formulas give us this awesome, much more accurate number. We call it your estimated glomerular filtration rate, or just eGFR. The easiest way to think about it is as your kidney's performance score. So, what does that score actually mean? This is where we go from just having a number to potentially having a diagnosis. A really healthy eGFR is generally up over 90. As that number starts to drop, you move through what are called the stages of chronic kidney disease, or CKD. It's a spectrum, you know? It goes from a mild loss of function in stage 2 all the way down to stage 5, which is what we call kidney failure. So with all these numbers flying around, what's the one you should really lock into your memory? It's 60. If your eGFR result comes back below 60 and it stays that way for more than 3 months, that's the official line in the sand for a diagnosis of chronic kidney disease. That's the number that tells everyone, okay, it's time to pay close attention and take action.
And that leads us right into our final section, the action plan. Because once we know what's going on, it's all about managing things, your health, your medications, as carefully as possible to protect the kidney function you've got.
Let's look at a perfect real-world example, metformin. It's a super common drug for diabetes. And look at this. The instructions for how to use it are tied directly to your eGFR. If your score is above 60, no problem. As it drops below 45, your doctor's going to lower the dose. And if it falls below 30, you stop the drug completely. Why? To prevent it from building up to toxic levels. It's a beautiful example of personalized medicine.
But managing CKD is about more than just tweaking med doses. When your kidneys aren't filtering at 100%, they also have a harder time managing other important stuff, like your blood pressure, your fluid levels, and these vital minerals we call electrolytes. And that can lead to a whole bunch of other issues.
One of the most critical electrolytes we watch is potassium. It is absolutely essential for your nerves and muscles to work right, especially your heart. And what's wild is that the normal, safe range is incredibly narrow, just between 3.5 and 5.1. But if that number starts climbing past the normal range, it becomes a real medical emergency. A potassium level over 6.5 is considered life-threatening because it can seriously mess with your heart's rhythm. This is why it gets monitored so closely.
In an emergency like that, doctors move fast. They'll immediately stop any meds that might be raising your potassium. They might give you a special resin that basically traps potassium in your stomach so you can get rid of it. In a hospital, they can even use an IV of insulin and sugar to literally push the potassium out of your blood and back into your body's cells, which buys them critical time.
So, after all that, what's the big picture? What's the main takeaway? It's really this. Managing your health, especially your kidney health, is a partnership. When you understand what these numbers mean, it empowers you. You can work with your doctors and pharmacists as a team. You can ask better questions, and you become an active player in your own healthcare.
You know, that lab report you get, it's not just a bunch of random numbers. It's telling a story. It's a chapter in your health journey. And understanding it gives you the power to help write the next chapter. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what is your story telling you? Thanks so much for watching.